The career of Daniel Suarez has continued to be a Shakespearean tragedy. 10 months after getting a second chance at Stewart Haas Racing, Monterrey, Mexico's pride and joy is out of the 41. Cole Custer, following a Stardom Xfinity campaign, will get behind the wheel of the Haas Automation Ford Mustang. Throughout the summer and into the fall, it seemed likely Suarez would get re-signed to the 41. The climax for this tragedy ultimately relied with Daniel Suarez missing the playoffs. Over the next few months, it was a back and forth is he in or is he out type of scenario. Tony Stewart expressed his desire to re-sign Suarez, but unfortunately the ball wasn't in his court. Because the 41 was owned by Gene Haas, it was his car, his decision. He demanded an estimated $7 to $10 million from Arison sponsorship, but it ultimately fell through. Daniel Suarez once again is vying for a new ride, by also missing the playoffs and unleashed a lot of the horrible and, in my opinion, misguided takes on Daniel Suarez. I've heard how he's a mid-pack driver, making a mockery of the best stock car drivers in the world. When you look at what this guy has gone through, as well as his statistics compared to his teammates, he's easily the scapegoat for the underwhelming results. The date is January 7, 2019. On that chilly afternoon, it was confirmed that Daniel Suarez would take over the 41 following months of speculation and negotiations. From an outsider's perspective, this was seen as no harm, no foul. He would join the league's dominators that won 12 races and placed all 4 cars in the round of 8. When you take in consideration the preparations for next season, this was the first red flag. For most NASCAR Cup Series teams, the Monday morning after Homestead is when prep work usually begins for the next calendar year. For most competitive teams, you'd better have key pieces put together in order to stay ahead of the competition. While the 41 was uncertain of a driver in mid-December, early January, MTJ and Ryan Newman were getting accustomed to their new teams, while William Byron and Jimmy Johnson were gaining chemistry with their new crew chiefs. Approximately 1 month after the contract was made official, cars would be unloading in Daytona. Daniel Suarez was already at a disadvantage compared to the 6, 10, 14, you name it, working with Billy Scott as well as his race team. Analyzing this move back in January, however, this was a long-term move. As the 2019 season began, the 41 team, howbeit, was very consistent, like many expected. Daniel Suarez had an outstanding third-place result in Texas, a part of 3 top 10 finishes in a row. A 4th place at Michigan, meanwhile, placed them 13th in the playoff standings, 40 points above Ryan Newman in 17th. Stewart Haas Racing didn't have race-winning speed, but their 4 cars could race up front and collect critical points. A brutal stretch from late June, early July ultimately derailed the consistent results, screwing up strategy at Sonoma, suffering blown tires in the Windy City, breaking an axle in Daytona, finishing dead last in the 40-car field. When you look at their greatest chance to win, the Quaker State 400 at Kentucky was their golden opportunity. Daniel Suarez netted the pole position and led the first 49 laps. Under the first yellow, Billy Scott made a call for 4 tires and fuel. Great call on paper, except there's one factor they ignored. It was hard to pass, meaning track position was critical all night long. The 41 team learned the hard way as Daniel Suarez went nowhere, finishing 14th in stage 1. A few more issues later and they were taken out of race contention, although they rebounded to finish 8th. New Hampshire, Pocono, and Watkins Glen further pushed them below the cut line as Suarez was placed 18th with 4 races to go. But then a top 5 at Michigan provided new energy for the Aris team. Daniel Suarez netted 2 top 10s and an 11th place at Darlington. Consistently good finishes on the speedway and gaining ground on the cut line. Indianapolis, they rallied from an untimely caution to get back on the lead lap and gain track position on the track. Unfortunately, it took greatness on the pavement as Clint Boyer and Ryan Newman scored big on stage points. Daniel Suarez drove home to an 11th place finish and could merely watch the laps pass by, knowing his opportunity was slipping away. After 26 races, Daniel Suarez missed the playoffs by just 4 points. 4 positions, 4 stage points, 4 points of miscues skewing their way could have made up the difference. During the playoffs, pretty much the story of Daniel Suarez's race would go as follows. He usually qualified really well and was showing his skill level during stage 1. In stage 2, however, the 41 would struggle on the long run, losing track position and ending up mid-pack. To finish the race, he would usually get collected in a wreck not of his own doing. During that 10-race stretch, he would finish 20th or worse 5 times, 4 of which were outside the top 30. Luckily, there would be some good fortunes in Texas. He was racing for the lead alongside SHR Migos, Eric Almirola, and Kevin Harvick, placing 3rd after 500 grueling miles. To end out the season, Suarez netted 4 top 5s, 11 top 10 finishes, and finished a career-high 17th in points. Couple in some laps led, it was his best career-long campaign to date. But of course, these results are far off from Kurt Busch. In his 5 years in the 41, the Outlaw scored 6 wins and made the playoffs every year. Many have used him as a measuring stick for Daniel Suarez, and honestly, I find it as an unfair comparison. The elder Busch brother is the most experienced driver in the league with nearly 2 decades as a top-tier driver. How did this occur, you ask? Great prospect development by Roush Fenway Racing. Jimmy Fenning matured him as a driver from 2002 to 2005, winning races and the coveted 2004 championship. He's one of the rare drivers that can make any car better than it truly is, case in point Ganassi this year. A team and crew chief struggling with Jamie McMurray won a race and made the 16-driver playoffs. Daniel Suarez, meanwhile, hasn't worked with the same team or crew chief for more than 2 seasons. He was set to defend his Xfinity title with Scott Graves until Carl Edwards retired in mid-January. He was paired with Dave Rogers until he took a personal leave of absence 5 races into the season. Scott Graves took over an abandoned and deteriorated 19 team and just couldn't turn things around before MTJ and Cole Pearn were moved in-house. The reason why drivers such as Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, and Eric Jones haven't advanced to the championship yet is because experience is still key. It's hard to best the Kevin Harvicks, Kyle Busches, and MTJs that have been doing this since the mid-2000s. In the case of Mexico's flagship racer, he can't make a team better than it is, not the way he's been tossed around from team to team. Not to mention, Stewart Haas Racing hasn't been the dominators of seasons past. Clint Bowyer advanced to the round of 12, but that was largely in part to the 14 not screwing themselves over. They gained consistency, but they were also never a race-winning contender. Much like Daniel Suarez, he missed the playoffs in 2017 and has won twice in 108 starts with the organization. Eric Almirola, meanwhile, has been one of the most disappointing drivers of the 2019 season. Johnny Klossmeyer hasn't built on the resurgent 2018 playoffs and have struggled since the spring. In fact, Almirola went nearly 5 months without a top 10 on a track not named Daytona or Talladega. Oh yeah, not to mention he hasn't won a race on a track not named Daytona or Talladega either. Subtract the playoffs and Daniel Suarez was on par with Almirola and Bowyer in both top 5s, top 10s, and average finish. If anything, in my opinion, the veterans should be on more pressure to perform at this stage of the game. With the organization, however, this goes with the general themes of SHR over the past few months. It's a fairly lopsided organization as you see Kevin Harvick and Rodney Childers consistently up front and leading laps. Since 2014, the 4 team has won 26 races and a championship. The other 3 cars combined have just 10. Unless they're the clear-cut best team like 2018, the 10, 14, and 41 teams are second to third tier teams. Consistent veterans and smart crew chiefs to earn results, but never a team capable of delivering a championship. They needed to go into a different direction, preferably younger for possibly the long-term future. Daniel Suarez was that driver, a young gun to develop for success 5 to 10 years down the road. Unfortunately, it was sponsorships that solidified the 2 veterans, and the young gun was replaced with an even younger gun. Through the turmoil, Daniel Suarez has become one of my favorite drivers. He's one of the hardest working individuals in the Cup garage, and he longs to become a NASCAR Cup superstar. You saw it at Kansas when he made a balls-to-the-walls 5-wide move, or at Martinsville fending Bowyer off in the outside groove. To add in, he brings a new fan base, something critical for the growth of NASCAR entering the 2020s. He doesn't tear up equipment, and he has a great personality alongside Bubba Wallace and Ryan Blaney. In terms of next season, I would try hard to remain under the SHR umbrella. When a 3-time champion believes in your abilities, that should not be taken lightly. The best case scenario is to get the now vacant 00, with Billy Scott and crew getting demoted to the Xfinity Series. Hopefully, Tony Stewart lets him gain that year lost in the lower divisions, develop with his crew chief, and allow him to win races and possibly a championship. Surely enough, sponsors will come and likely a ride will open up on the mothership in 2 to 3 years. The last time Stewart Haas Racing had a recurring driver roster was 2015 to 2016, and Bowyer, Almirola, and Harvick aren't getting any younger. He could take that option, or of course there's always an opening at Hendrick Motorsports in 2021. I merely hope this scenario plays out because Daniel Suarez has been through complete hell over the past 3 years, constantly changing things around him and always on a short leash to perform. He deserves a few laid-back years to rebuild his career and stabilize, and I wish nothing but the best finding a new ride for 2020. So anyways, this is NRF signing out, and just remember, life's a beach and then you drive.